Poddin My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Poddin My Noggin. I'm your host, CK Sims, and today we are joined opposite sides of the coast, all the way from California, Wanda Webster and Christopher Mack. Welcome to Poddin My Noggin. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. So I will tell you right as we kick off, you are my first duo in the podcast. So I think I love first, right? So having two people on to speak at the same time, different perspectives. So why don't you tell my audience and myself, I kind of have a little bit of an idea. I have this thing, I don't like to research my guests too much in advance because then I formalize far too many questions. And I want us to have a conversation as opposed to an interview. So tell us about Wanda Webster and Christopher Mack. What is it that brings you both together?
I'm going to have Christopher start because it all started with him. And then there was a synergy that brought this whole program together. But it did start with Christopher, his past, what he went through. So we're going to start with Mr. Mack.
All right,
okay. So my journey, to let's say a sober life started in the year 2000. And when I met Wanda, I was it was 10 years after I started my journey. And so it was in that 10th year, and I was taking a healing class from this guy, and Wanda was taking the same class. Now, mind you, I had taken the class before. And so it was hands-on healing from the Ethereal Society. And that was from Dr. King. And it was at the Bodhi Tree, which is I would say a metaphysical bookstore that was on the coast that was very popular in Los Angeles. And so I was taking that class again just because I wanted to, freshen up. And Wanda, she was assisting the instructor. And so she was telling me how to hold my hands. And I said, well, wait a minute, hold on. I've taken this class before. And she says, well, why are you so mean? I said, I'm not mean. I said, I've taken this class. And then she said, and then she came and she was being friendly to me. And I told her, I said, oh, wow. And then we went to lunch and I told her.
Wait a minute. He called me arrogant and an overachiever.
I did call you that. So I told her, I said, you're an overachiever. I said, because I have my hands right. And so we started practicing together, and I went to her house, and I was kind of like taken back by her. And so I told her, I said, wow, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous tells you that the first step is being honest. And so I'm trying to practice this honesty. And the only way you're going to ever really be honest is to find out what level of dishonesty you are, and then do the counteract that, do something different. So I said, you know what? I like women. I'm a polygamist by nature. She says, that doesn't work for me. I said, wait a minute. If that doesn't work for you, what does work for you? She says, I'm looking for a monogamous relationship. I said, I can't do that. Because my philosophy was that I didn't want to be a cheater. I didn't want to lie to you. I said, I like lots of women. And then all of a sudden, I said, I don't know. She said, commitment. And I said, well, I have no idea how that looks, how it works. And she said, why don't you be my 30-day boyfriend? And from there, that's how it started. 30 days turned to 60, 60 turned to 6 months, 6 months turned to a year. Now it's 15 years.
Okay, no. Okay, so we need to back this train up just a little bit. Okay. So for a second there, I was like, okay, I need to reread what this is all about. Like, what's happening? So you were polygamous at heart. That was your philosophy.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
You met by chance for you doing what I would call a maintenance session in that healing that you had already done before.
Right.
Because people forget that we might have done something before, but it's good to do it again because it drives home certain things. But so you met there initially, and this is crazy to me. So initially, neither of you really meshed because she thought you were mean and you thought she was arrogant and an overachiever.
Yes.
But okay, but then she came back and she was friendly. And somehow that now
It just kind of gradually morphed into something romantic.
okay.
That's one aspect of our relationship. And then again, I get baby steps in everything. But yeah, 30 days did turn into, well, do you want to re-up for another 30 days?
What an interesting take though. Like I just find that fascinating to say to you, like you're a polygamist, you didn't want to commit, you wanted to continue to be polygamous.
Polygamous by nature.
Absolutely. You knew at that time, say 15 years ago, that was a boundary that wouldn't work for you.
Yeah.
That wasn't your thing. So your compromise was, well, let's give it a shot for 30 days.
Yeah.
And so in that 30 days, Christopher, Mr. Matt, what happened? How did you say shift mindset a little bit in that 30 days to make you want to commit to another 30 days?
Because I told her I didn't know how to commit and I didn't know what it really was internally. And as I began to practice commitment, it became, comfortable. She became, my friend, my confidant. I began to view her through a different lens.
Well,
I began
don't
to.
forget the question you asked. What am I going to get out of this?
Oh yeah, but that's the esoteric point. That's the spiritual point. Because when she said, why don't you try monogamy? I asked, what am I going to get out of this? And I was at home in my own quiet, and I just heard the Spirit say, you're going to get the spiritual growth and development. So now I have the biggest bargaining chip. I have the biggest thing of value for myself, and that's spiritual growth and development. So there's nothing that compares to that. So now my value points start to rise. When she says, when the Spirit says you're going to get spiritual growth and development, oh wow, I'm getting something out of this. And so I'm all in. Now here's my chips on the table. Let's play.
That's fascinating.
It's the value.
But it's fascinating. I'm processing in real time. So, like to me, I think that is just truly fascinating. So the chance meeting, the progress over time, your internal struggle with, and I love how you said you didn't know what commitment was, right? Like I think it takes a lot of vulnerability to say that because we see commitment say on television or movies or in storybooks and all of that stuff, but like no one really usually talks about like what commitment is and the benefits of commitment and how that works not just on paper but in real life. And so I love that as well. So 10 years, so 2000 was the year that you said you started your healing journey, correct, Mr. Matt?
That is correct. You are right on target.
So 24 years now is how long it's been going on. What was life like for you before?
Life like me before, I had found crack cocaine, in the 70s. And it was kind of like, I had the lifestyle of an addict, so I was out there, in perils and, in times sublime, as it would be put. And I was standing on the corner one night and I had a rock in my glove and the police that's in the year 2000. And I was looking at 5 years in the state penitentiary. And I said to myself, I can't be locked up. I said, how am I going to die before I get to prison? And right then, a voice came into my being and says, you're not going to see one day in the state penitentiary. And that's what happened. And so I went and spent the night 3 days in jail. And then all of a sudden they said, you're up for release. You get out on reconnaissance. And then when I talked to the judge, he said, you can go into rehab. And that's when I went into the Arena B. And I was there for about a year.
Wow. So you've mentioned several times now the Spirit has spoken to you, right? So this
Uh,
seems to be a prevalent topic throughout your life when you were in the throes of addiction, when you began your journey, when you were midway through your journey, when you met this lovely woman who wanted more than you felt you had to offer at that moment, right? The
Yes.
Spirit was speaking to you. So just to clear things up for people listening, when you say Spirit, do you mean God? Is that what you're referring to? Or are you thinking, because it could be God, of course, but everyone has their own beliefs, right? So what are your beliefs surrounding that area?
First of all, you know, to me, anything that I think about God would probably be an error. But the awesomeness of God is so huge. You know, you talk about infinite itself. When I talk about God, I talk about the creator, the source of all things. That's what I talk about. However, do I believe in guides, guardian angels, and things like that? Yes. And so, you know, I just feel like it was a higher being than myself. That's it. But when I talk about God, I talk about the source of intelligence, the source of creation, the source of everything. And that's incomprehensible because if you look at creation, you can marvel at the world, but then you say, wow, you know. And so I don't like to say God in the sense because everybody has their own, you know, point of discussion about God. But I just say it was probably it was probably my birth angel. It could have been my guardian angel. It could have been anything that was not me. And that's the point. That
A
it was not,
universal power.
yeah, it was not me. Because when it says you won't see, that's a conversation being had outside of my own intellect.
Very profound. And Wanda, let's switch to you for a moment. What? So you're helping assist this healing class or healing program at that time.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get there? What was your story?
Well, that's how Christopher and I mesh, is that we constantly seek ways to improve ourselves, to face our inner demons, our shadow side, spiritual classes. It was, again, taking Reiki classes. Christopher's a Reiki master. It's that whole spiritual community, which we're lucky to have out here in the Los Angeles area. So I've always been a seeker, always want to find something more than this 3D world. What does it all mean? What's my purpose? What's my place? What's my destiny? And I think, yes, it seemed happenstance that Christopher and I found each other, but now that I look back, I feel like it was destiny. There was that, something pulling us together, even if there was things to work out in the beginning of the relationship. There was that force that was bigger than us that was saying, oh no, you're going to go. I didn't want to, I didn't think about having a relationship with him, but it kept pulling me that way by circumstances. And he's wonderful to talk to. And that, made me fall in love with him. Just his vulnerability, his honesty. I've never met somebody as honest as Christopher and as vulnerable. That is seductive.
Of course, because it's rare.
Yes.
The vulnerability, the honesty, that sort of thing. And in my experience in life, it takes someone who's gone through great adversity to finally shake loose a lot of these preconceived notions we're fed
yes,
growing up in life. And to say, you know, for Christopher, that honesty and openness and vulnerability, that's your way, that's who you are. That doesn't just, you aren't born this way. I haven't met anybody yet that's been just came out the womb being an honest, like realistic person looking at life through loving eyes, wanting to seek the more, all of that sort of thing. So it's been 15 years that you've been together, and you've written 2 books, if I'm not wrong.
This is correct.
What are the names of your books?
Well, since Christopher was in recovery, I had no experience with that, because I didn't believe I was an addict in any way until come to find out people pleasing is an addiction. And that was my addiction based on the trauma I received growing up. But the first book is called The Journey Within. And so, did you see that?
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. I love the color.
Thank you. So, because my background is as an educator and psychology, I love delving into people's behaviors, why they do certain things. I've created a lot of social emotional programs. Christopher, background in AA, I would travel with him and listen to him speak. He used to speak sometimes 3 times a week. And a lady stood up and said, well, this is all well and good, but why am I the way I am? And I was waiting for somebody to answer that. Well, I wanted to know that. And he said, well, AA never addresses that. So it got me thinking, this is 10 years ago, I started researching. And based upon the horrific stories I heard in that room, it had to be based on trauma. It just had to be. So we were actually one of the first ones. Now everybody talks about it. But back then, nobody was talking about it and incorporating it into addiction and self-soothing behavior. So we created The Journey Within. And because, you know, I know how to create programs. It was a 10-week program. We piloted it on Skid Row in the area for 3 years in 3 different locations. But I knew we had to reach more people. Yes, sometimes we had 60 people in our group, but took time off and wrote a couple of books for the program.
Skid Row.
Christopher's worked on Skid Row for 21 years now. 21 or 22?
It's going on 22.
Going on 22 years now.
And what kind of work, the program? Is it the programs that you're doing, or?
Oh, he's a lead outreach worker down there.
I'm a senior community outreach worker for a company in Los Angeles that provides medical services for the underserved.
And you're not scared? You like the first time you went there 21 years ago, you weren't scared?
First time I went there 21 years ago, I found myself in the throes of, you know, the decay of the human soul. And I looked at it as the elephant graveyard. And the elephant, because the elephant is a huge animal, but it's also represents, to me, it was like the big souls. They were just go somewhere and just drop. And I seen people dying and languishing in the sun. And I said, this is the elephant graveyard. And I cried for 2 years. And it wasn't until the year 2005 I began to see something else. And what I saw was the rise of the phoenix. I saw the resilience of the human experience that was so profound. And I said, this is the rise of the phoenix. And we have to understand that the phoenix goes down and the ashes of new birth rises up. And that speaks to the resilience of mankind. It says, no matter what man goes through, there is this resilience that I believe the Creator has instilled in us. And you don't get that type of resilience until you go through something.
Absolutely. I agree with that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Life in Stitches by C.K. Sims. Available for purchase in paperback and ebook on all major platforms. Partner today with C.K. Sims and Poddin My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Go on.
Welcome back, everybody, to Poddin My Noggin. Before the break, we were talking to Wanda Webster and Mr. Christopher Mack. We're Mr. Mack.
Christopher, man.
Right?
Christopher
Mack.
fine. You can call me Christopher.
We were talking about how, to summarize, really, because there was a lot said, but there was even more present in the conversation about this. But Christopher Mack had addictions. 2000, he could have potentially went to, I don't know why I air quoted there, so I apologize for the air quote. Could have potentially went to jail. Voice spoke to him and told him he would not. And instead ended up in rehab, which kicked off a 24-year recovery. 10 years later, he meets this arrogant and overachieving woman at a healing workshop. And she thought he was rude, but this would be Wanda Webster, who now you're celebrating 15 years together. And what we talked about too was, we'll bring that up because I think it's beautiful, is that you didn't know how to be in a committed relationship. And Wanda offered a 30-day boyfriend that became another 30-day boyfriend. And here we are. Right before the break, we were talking about how when you first started going to Skid Row to do work, you cried for like 2 years. The elephant graveyard is what you said. And then after some time in 2005, you had realized that something was shifting. And it was almost like the rise of a phoenix in that period, and the resiliency of humankind, right? What would you say are the key differences in working in Skid Row now, today, versus when you began 21 years ago?
I think the system still has it wrong because they stop at the idea that most of the people are there because of substance use and mental health. I said mental health is in the arena of the whole society, period. It's just not on Skid Row, and it just doesn't happen down there. Substance use is also something that is in the whole society. I once read an article where it says the real economy of society is guns and drugs. I'm almost kind of like convinced that's true. But when I look at homelessness, it's a socioeconomic condition. And if we don't start looking at it through that lens, I think that we continue to exacerbate the problem. In other words, we don't have a real solution to it because we're not looking at it from a lens of intelligence.
I agree with you. And it's interesting because I'm very mindful of how things cause me to react and what fires off when someone's talking. And as you were talking, I always think about, we know we have a homeless problem in America. We know we have a homeless problem in Canada, where I'm from, as well. It's not isolated to just Skid Row. It's everywhere, right? And it is a failure on the system's part. And it's a failure on our part as humanity. Because to me, humanity, the people, should never be okay with individuals not having food to eat, necessary medical care, or a place to sleep, a clean place to sleep. And I think that is a failure on our part. And it's never going to change until we actually make it change hold people accountable. But it does feel like we're beating a dead horse, right? Because this has been a conversation for a really long time. How do you think people listening, people who might watch this podcast, myself, how do you think we could change or alter our behaviors to positively impact homelessness?
I'm really glad you asked that question. Because I do have a true answer.
Okay.
The idea this a socioeconomic condition means that the way we live as human beings is counterproductive to our own well-being, first of all. The second, the real answer to the question is, I believe it was said by Einstein, you cannot fix the problem with the same brain that created it. That's it. And if you say it's a system problem. However, the hope is in the evolutionary leap of the human species itself. That's what I see. I see that there is an evolutionary leap in process, in progress. And so
You're talking about the consciousness.
the consciousness, the evolutionary leap in consciousness is here and it's occurring until the 100th monkeys theory says when it reaches that 100th monkey, it then transcends and goes across the water. That's what the 100 monkey theory is about. It's the 100th monkey, once he gets it, now the monkeys on the other side of the water start washing the potatoes. That was the 100th monkey. If anybody wants to look up the 100th monkey theory.
I'm totally going to do that after this interview.
It's a crisis in humanity. And until we let go of this silly belief and concept that a fear that people have that there's not enough to go around and therefore I have to get as much as I can now when the getting's good, whatever, when we let go of that, because a society will thrive when all of us thrive. Community, right? Setting up small communities.
True. Yeah.
Right.
When you say consciousness, I want to ask, you've seen it, you said, and I believe I have too, perhaps maybe in different ways, but would you contribute wokeness to that rise in consciousness?
Once again, sometimes we throw things out there and we make it a thing. And then all of a sudden it's gone. But awareness, is something that happens to the individual. He just becomes aware of something. That is not, wokeness is a political term that's been thrashing, us and beating us to an unconscious state. But just to be aware of something, says right. You just said it, community, consideration of another person. Because if one man is sick, we're all sick. If one man is dying, we're all dying. If one man, it's now saying the emphasis is on us socially, society, as being one person because we hurt together.
Like that.
We're on this ball.
One person cannot solve the world, okay?
No.
So,
however, Elon might have a different perception, but...
I'm not even going to go there. But for example...
I shouldn't have went there either, but it was...
For example, one small act has a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
Okay? What Christopher has done on Skid Row has created a ripple effect of humanity, of seeing people, of helping people, get them up to the next level. He's also started a choir 10 years ago, the Urban Voices Project on Skid Row. It is a huge thing. They perform all over. This helps. This has created a small community for some of them and probably saved some of their lives by increasing their self-confidence, their self-esteem, teaching them how to be performers. Little things. So you can't take on the whole system. You can't take on the whole problem. But think of one little small thing that you can do. That's what the second book is about. Isabel Starry Night, The Magical Quest for Alchemy. As this young girl coming of age, she learns how she's more powerful than she can imagine. How she can create an alchemy how she can create a shift in energy just by some small, she witnesses it on her journey, and she meets some profound people that help her, that give her, that are mentors, that guide her. But that's what the book illustrates, so that people can see, well, what is this journey within that you're talking? What does it look like when it's in action? Well, here is a fictional story. Isabel has a self-reflection every night, about what went right, what did she learn, what went wrong. That's what we should all do. We should all take that time to reflect on our day, morning, noon, and night if we can. But that's what the second book is about.
But see, initially, the first book is actually about being able to do introspection and reflections, period. As a society, we don't usually do introspection and reflection. It's on to the next thing. It's on to the next activity. And we don't examine, with a healthy lens. You see, if the lens is healthy, then the outcome is going to be a lot better. But if the lens is unhealthy, then we continue to do things that diminishes us, that takes away our greatness. We're great.
Totally agree. And I love that you mentioned the lens part, because I think I did a lot of introspection for the first 35 years of my life, but through a very poor negative lens. And at 35, that lens got a real good cleaning.
Good.
And I was able to flip my consciousness, really, how I spoke to myself internally, how I felt about myself internally, do the work. And then that introspection became external and focused outwards, not by choice. It just started happening. That energy started to move outwards and affect the people that were in my life. So that is a key point, is be introspective, but through a healthy lens.
You just did something. In the book, The Journey Within, we talk about the 5 C's. What you just did was you described the 5 C's in action. What you did. And you just described the 5 C's. The first C is commitment, communications, cooperation, consideration, and compromise. That's a healthy relationship. Those 5 C's belong to the self first, and then it explodes and it goes outward. And so that is the byproduct of introspection and reflection, is you start to have a healthy lens of observation. Commitment, communications, cooperation, consideration, and compromise. I got 7 C's, but that'll probably drop you overboard.
I love how that you brought it into your spiritual journey, your journey together, the work that you're doing. You've brought it into a book so that it has a broader reach. I have to ask, have you thought about creating a course?
Creating a course?
Yeah.
You mean an online course?
Yeah.
Well, the book is laid out into 10 weeks. So we have done it online with a small group of people. We just came back from Colombia, South America. There's a retreat called Calling in Love. It's 7, 8. We stayed for about 7 days, and we got to present some of our work to the group, because this is a group that's doing inner work. So we do individual coaching. So we can take a snippet or meet people where they are, but we do want to get back out and start doing the course. I work as an educational therapist. Christopher works on Skid Row. Time is our only constraint at this point. So
yes,
and we do have a website.
You have what?
We have a website.
It is dynamicsofrecovery.com, correct?
Yes, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so if somebody were, say, planning a trip to LA area, like next year, and wanted to meet up and have a conversation over coffee or book an hour of your time,
yes,
they could do it through that website?
Sure. They can send us an email. Absolutely.
Okay.
We do a lot of stuff via Zoom.
Via Zoom, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the allure, I think, would be, well, and I was speaking of myself because I plan on coming. I've never been to Los Angeles.
Oh,
And there's
absolutely.
an
Absolutely. You
allure.
yeah.
We'll show you
Um,
around. Well, yes.
oh my God,
Yeah.
I would love that. But so what's next then? Besides, you both have your jobs, you both have your books and things like that. What, besides your time constraints, what do you feel is your next chapter in this good work that you're doing?
Well, we're doing a lot of we're guests on other people's podcasts right now. It's a big decision for us to go off and do our own, or do we segue back into YouTube videos and just reach people via, we don't know. We're kind of waiting to see where the creator is taking us, but we're open and we're constantly putting the work out there. It's just like we've been invited to, people say, come, people invite us to things. We definitely follow up and do that.
I love that. So you're sort of considering whether or not you want to create your own podcast,
Possibly.
or possibly.
Possibly. It's a big job, isn't it? It's a big commitment.
It is a big commitment. I'll say this. I will say this. I could. It's something I would watch, especially if we're talking about Reiki and growth and spiritual guidance and your 5 C's and stuff like that. I think that there's definite benefit in that, and people would definitely watch. The commitment is how you want to structure it. Like, so if it's just going to be you two showing up and talking to amongst yourselves and trying to get engagement, that sort of thing, less of a commitment. But if you're going to have guests and record and the social media component and promotion, and so like right now I'm one person, but
Yes.
I know that and this is where I didn't have a voice, but I have a feeling, and it's my intuition. I was always afraid to put myself out into this world. Poor self-image, all of those things. That journey brought me to a place where I was like, okay, enough's enough. I'm done being a scaredy cat. Like, I want to have a conduit to meet people, to share messages of resilience and growth, and to be kind. And so that's what this podcast was born from. So the fact that I'm like 36 episodes in my first season is a huge deal for me. That if you were to tell me 8 years ago that this would happen, I would laugh in your face. I'd be like, that's never going to happen. How much clonazepam are you giving me to make that happen? Is what would have been my answer, right? So, but yeah, so I know that I'm on the right track, and I feel like I intuitively, I know that within the next little while, I'll have the help to make it less. But like it is a time commitment. And it's something that, you're weighing on your mind. Like, is it going to land? Is people going to want to see it? And I think I had to release what happens to the podcast after I spend the time with people like yourself to the creator. And
yes,
if they want it to be seen by specific people or all the people, or what, that's not my business. My business is to show up, hold a safe space, to have great conversations with people like yourselves, and just sit back and enjoy that ride. I think
enjoy the process, enjoy that,
Yes.
and then see where it takes you. I don't know where I imagine this is going to take us away from our jobs eventually, and this is what we're going to do. That's what I imagine. I've made plans before in my life that didn't work out.
Well, so I think plans are what you make while life is happening, right? Isn't that the
Exactly.
saying?
Exactly.
So I think, I've done a lot of bold things in 2024. I went out on my own, started a podcast. Like, and when I say go out on my own, I'm like, I left corporate and started my own consulting firm. Like, a lot of really big, bold moves in 2024 because I was just done with fear. It's been great so far. And I think it's because I'm being true to myself and to wanting to, I don't know, figure out what my true purpose is here on this realm, I suppose, and in this time frame. What am I supposed to be doing? What is my impact? How can I teach people to be kind? That's what I think it is I think people forget what kindness really is, or forget how to that they can experience kindness from other people.
And they
But
forget
also,
the impact that kindness has, that ripple
well, that's just
effect.
it.
It
Yeah.
could be a smile that you give someone that just turns their day around. They
And
forget the impact.
we're so caught up in life. We're so caught up in everything that's going on. I think that, you know, you're doing it right now. You're out in Skid Row. That's your job. You're doing your educational therapy. That's your job. You're teaching people. You're helping people. You're leading. And these roles in life and in community are important. So I love it. I love this conversation. I want nothing but the best for the both of you.
Thank you.
And for anybody that's home and is listening and is fascinated by their story, I'm sure there's more story here.
There's a lot more story.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a Google, find some more podcasts. Do you keep your media on your website, Dynamics of Recovery?
We do. Yes.
Okay, so Dynamics of Recovery, I'm going to link it in the description. And they have an Instagram, a YouTube, and you can purchase the book on Amazon, both books.
Yes, and there's a link on our website where it takes you directly to purchase the books too.
I love this as well. Last, before we leave, if you were to tell the world anything, one piece of advice, what would that be? I'll ask both of you.
My advice is you're much more than you think you are. There's much more to this world than this 3D. And as such, you are much more than just this physical body. You're much more powerful than you imagine. That's my message to people.
I would say be encouraged, be of good cheer, and, find the laughter in your life.
You are much more. Beautiful advice. And true. Very true advice.
Well, we've been through it, so.
And like I said earlier, right? I think it's the people who've been through it really get it. And they understand the importance of it. That's my tribe, is the people who've been through it. And if we can mobilize said tribe in a big way, we could really change humanity completely.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on my show, my little old podcast, but I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
I wish you continued success. For everyone at home, I'm going to link the website in the description. Head on over to www.dynamicsofrecovery.com to check out more media opportunities or more media recordings of Christopher Mack and Wanda Webster. A lot more story that we didn't get to today, and to pick up their books. Until next time, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and go out there and live your wildest dreams.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@cksims.com or visit cksims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.